Welcome to Comicstorian, your #1 place for dramatic readings of your favorite comic books. I'm Dan, and I'll be your narrator today for the comic series The Immortal X-Men. This story is the main precursor to the X-Men event Sins of Sinister, and in this video we will be covering issues 1 through 4 and 8 through 10 of Immortal X-Men. This is the core story, as issues 5, 6, and 7 are a part of the larger Marvel event known as Judgment Day, so we'll be skipping those ones and keeping to just what you need to know for Sins of Sinister. I hope you guys enjoy. Paris, 1919. Nathaniel Essex sits quietly on a park bench, reading a newspaper that proclaims the end of the war. He looks up as Irene Adler approaches. The two exchange pleasantries, but Irene quickly warns him of an approaching war. It will change everything. I know you're an evil man, but I fear that our fates are joined together. I think we need to be on the same side, she tells him. He smiles at her as she leans in and whispers in his ear. At her words, his eyes grow wide and he begins to choke. Black liquid leaking from his eyes and mouth until he falls to the ground. "You're a ghost," he whispers before he dies. Irene looks down at him as Raven appears over her shoulder. "What did you tell him?" she asks. But Irene can't tell her, only asking that Raven trust her. The lovers take each other's hands and walk through the park. "I will tell you if you ever need to know, and we must hope that it never comes to that," Irene says. The present. Mr. Sinister steps through a portal into his hidden lab, smiling as he looks at his medical abominations, and he walks over to his computer. "Let's see how it's holding up," he says. He looks at all of the previous logs. "So I'm 26, he says with a surprised smile. He looks at the logs of past events, telling him what led to this point. "Today is a red letter day. I must remember to act surprised," he tells himself. Later, at the Quiet Council, Magneto stands up and gives his resignation, telling the group that he is retiring to Mars. The rest of the council doesn't seem at all surprised, with most of them knowing already. But Sinister storms to his feet. "What?" he shouts, realizing quickly that his surprised reaction might have been a little too much. Some aren't sad to see Magneto go, with Emma getting to her feet and demanding a vote to remove Magneto immediately and not allow him to vote on his replacement. The vote passes and Eric leaves the room. Sinister isn't surprised about this, having already learned that Charles and Eric revealed the truth about Moira to her. The Quiet Council quickly begins interviews with potential new council members. Afterwards, the members discuss the candidates, but Sinister shakes his head and walks out. "I can't help but think there's someone better for us. If we're an elite council, let's be elite. Nothing but the best for the Quiet Council," he says. It is Exodus who goes to the Five, telling Hope, who he believes to be the mutant messiah, that she should have a place on the council. Hope doesn't like that Exodus believes her to be some sort of messiah, but Exodus persists. "Enough of the acolyte stuff and cut to the chase. What do you want from me?" she asks him. He smiles at her and explains. Later, the council is interviewing Selene, a mutant vampire and one of the externals. She makes the case that she has knowledge of the ancient mutants and magic, that she will be a valuable member to the council. But she is interrupted as Hope walks down the entryway. "Yeah, that sounds like a good pitch, but it needs to be me," she says. Charles looks at her, reminding her that she has not been invited to the council. "Yeah, I know, but I think we can cut to the chase," Hope says. She points out that the Five need to have representation on the council, as they are the linchpin in Krakoa's society and should have a say in the workings of the nation. "So, if we want it, the Five needs to have representation. We want it," she says. Sinister looks at her and smiles before turning to the rest of the council. "Am I the only one who hears an or else here?" he asks. But Hope shakes her head and turns to leave. I don't think that people hearing that I was refused is going to make the council very popular. It's not really an ultimatum. I just don't really see you having any other option, she says as she walks out of the room. The council is quiet for a moment before thanking Celine for her time. The vampire turns away angry, reminding them that the external gate that reached Araco was created from the bones of her murdered externals. Think of the disruption if that gate just went away. And yes, Sinister, you hear an or else, she says as she walks out of the room. Sinister sighs inwardly. He knows that Celine is bluffing, but he loves her cape. Afterwards, the council votes. Sinister knows how everyone will vote, and will vote against Hope so as not to arouse suspicions. But when the vote gets to Destiny, she decides against Hope, and Sinister is shocked, and is now aware that the vote will sway in the wrong direction. He needs Hope on the council, and he suddenly raises his hand. I'm sorry. I've thought about this, and I want to change my vote. Give the girl a chance. Spirit of youth, fresh blood and all that. Yes, he says. Everyone looks at him with a little bit of surprise for the moment, but the vote passed. Afterwards, Sinister stands, not wanting to make eye contact with Destiny, believing that she must know something. Charles goes to find Celine, letting her know that she has not been given a spot on the council. Celine, you're quiet. Are you taking this particularly well or particularly poorly? He asks her, but she just smiles. Feelings? As if they matter. This is quite simple. You made a decision, and you'll live with the consequences, she says. She raises her hands, and a massive monster raises from the ocean depths. The external gate was made whole once more. On the beach, the council stares in horror. I thought she was bluffing, Sinister shouts to the others. The monster rears back and bellows fire onto the island. The more heroic mutants leap into battle with the monster as Sinister turns to Irene in anger. Did you know this was going to happen? Why didn't you say something? He snaps at her. But she shakes her head, reminding him that he never understood her powers. I don't see the future because there is no the future. There is no destiny, she says as she and Raven turn to walk away. Sinister turns back to the battle. Crap, crap, crappity crap, he whispers to himself as he turns to leave. He returns to his lab quickly, knowing that he can just start over, try again. He reaches for a shotgun and aims it at the tank, preparing to start anew. But he pauses. No, one day, that's not enough, he whispers. Putting the weapon down, he turns back to his computer and orders it to record the battle, knowing that his future selves might be able to get some knowledge from it. He turns back to the stasis tanks, smiling at his clever plan, knowing that someone born with the ability to start over after they die and remembering everything is incredibly useful. But thinking that 10 deaths wasn't nearly enough and surprised that Moira never thought of his plan, he looks up at the tanks filled with Moira's clones, proud of his work. Krakoa. Hope looks up at the massive monster that Celine has created, knowing that it is because of her that this happened. Charles tries to talk Celine into destroying the beast, but the vampire shakes her head. Consequences, Charles, just consequences, she says before disappearing and returning to her home in London with her vampire cult. As Hope moves through the crowd, ordering other mutants to get everyone to safety, Magneto and Storm have engaged the beast, with Magneto using his powers to impale it with metal that allows Storm to channel her lightning better. The monster roars as it explodes in a shower of blood and falls to the ground. But as it does, Destiny begins to shake. Emma senses her terror as she reads the mutant's mind. This is a mistake. Futures, realities, warping. Oh, I feel sick. Just stop. Destiny gasps. Emma orders the others to cease their attack, and it is Dr. Nemesis who warns the mutants that destroying the monster will not only hurt Krakoa, but its connections to Otherworld. Storm stops her lightning immediately and watches with terror as the monster begins to heal and get to its feet. By the goddess, she whispers. Hope continues to help people evacuate until Exodus arrives and asks her to leave. "I'm not leaving anyone behind," she shouts. "Even I can't protect them all," he tells her. But she looks to him and explains to him that since he grows more powerful as more people believe in him, if she mimics his powers, then she'll be even more powerful. "People believe in me much more than they believe in you, right? So together," she says as she reaches for his hand. Combined, the two are able to create a shield that blocks the monster's attacks, allowing everyone to escape. In his lab, Sinister sighs as he continues to watch the battle. He opens his gene closet and picks a particularly strong gene. "It's a shame to remind them exactly what Sinister can be," he says as he steps back through the portal and appears at the battle. He drinks the potion and begins to transform. His body becomes a mass of muscle, bone, and claws. Charles looks at Sinister in shock. "Oh, Essex, what are you doing?" he asks psychically. Sinister rushes forward and fires a blast of energy from the diamond in his forehead. "Hero stuff, you know how it is," he says as he slams into the monster and throws it to the ground. "I'm going to get the kaiju clear of the island, but in about 6 seconds, I'm going to need a rescue," he says to Charles. But the gene wears off quickly and a massive explosion rips everything apart. Afterwards, Sinister floats in the ocean as the monster begins to reform. But Nightcrawler appears and teleports him back to the shore. Shouldn't I have a hero moment, Kurt? Crowds applauding, palms cast at my feet?" he asks. Kurt looks at him and cocks an eyebrow. "You would, if you were a hero," he says. Sinister looks at him. "Touché. But while I cannot change my history, you should realize I am as committed to Krakoa as anyone. We at least bought a reprieve together today," he says. Nightcrawler thinks about it for a moment before giving him a thumbs up. "Well done. You bought us time," he says before walking away. Sinister stares out at the ocean. God above. People who think the best of people are just the easiest, he says to himself. Charles calls the Quiet Council together within his mind, having a meeting on how to defeat the monster in the span of mere moments. Afterwards, Destiny goes to Hope and tells her that she has seen a vision. At 1907 Greenwich Mean Time, Celine will step through a window in London. I have ascertained the address. She will stand there for a second, and then she will die, Destiny says. Hope stares at her for a moment. You see probable futures, not certain ones. What are the chances of this happening? Hope asks. Destiny and Raven turn away. I dare say higher after this conversation, Destiny says over her shoulder. It doesn't take long for Hope to put her plan into action. She acquires a rifle and mimics magic's power, allowing her to teleport through limbo. She appears in London and begins to fall from the sky. But as she passes by the building where Celine is staying, Hope fires her rifle and kills the mutant. With her dead, she returns to Krakoa and brings Celine back. Welcome back, Celine, Hope says before knocking the woman out. Exodus steps from the shadows, taking control of Celine's mind and shutting the monster down. With Krakoa saved, Exodus snaps Celine's neck in one swift move. Later, Hope stands before the council. There was an opportunity, I took it, she explains. Some members of the council are impressed by her plan, but Charles leans forward. I have a question, Hope. Would you bring Celine back if she were at the top of the queue? He asks. Hope looks at him. "I think we should table that discussion for now," she says. Afterwards, the council disperses, but Destiny is still weak, unsure of why the creature seemed to disrupt time and space. She stumbles, and Raven catches her. "I haven't felt like this since over a century at least. Thinking of a bed, a summer. No." Destiny suddenly gasps before falling to the ground. Raven rushes to her side. "You're a ghost," Destiny whispers again and again. When Irene's powers first manifested, she was given a vision of all possible futures at once, and it nearly drove her mad. The visions would eventually take her sight, but she would take what time she had left to write her prophecies in 13 volumes, hiding them in a mix of truth and lies. In the present, she lies on her bed, stealing from the visions that fill her mind. "Scan her gently, the surface only," Raven orders Emma, giving her her best threat. Emma nods and looks into the woman's mind, seeing that she is lost in her visions. Emma tells her that the council is planning a meeting, but there is no reason for her to be there. "You can stay with Irene," Emma says softly. But Raven shakes her head. She knows that if this was to be the end of her love, Irene would have warned her. "My wife will not leave me like this," Raven says as the two leave the room. More images appear in Irene's mind of when she first met Raven. There were possible futures where she never met the love of her life, where she was trapped in loveless relationships. But inside, she found Raven, which allowed her to live the best life she could see. She was a nexus point that allowed for everything else to happen. But Irene also knew something else. For the future to happen, I had to die. She had warned Raven of this, warned her that it would happen this way, and that she would leave her alone. At the Quiet Council, Charles has finished explaining the true history of Krakoa and Moira to Hope, who nods. "I understand, so why is it a secret? Why don't we just tell everyone in Krakoa? We should do that," she tells the group. But Charles tells her that this is a terrible idea. "Come on, Charles, you knew what you were getting. Why did you give me a Cerebro helmet if you didn't want me to get more involved?" Hope asks. But Charles looks at her with shock. "I did no such thing," he says simply. Council begins to murmur amongst themselves. Some are looking at Raven, but it is Sinister who smiles. "I also had a strange visitor. Magneto came to me, asking for the Destiny DNA. I was entirely convinced it was him, but now that Hope has revealed this shocking truth, and if the shape changer in question wasn't me, I wonder who it could be," he says with a smile as he takes Raven's form. The real Raven gets to her feet in a rush. "Take my form again and I will murder you!" She shouts in anger. She stares at the group angrily. "You know, burning all this down was my other option. Lying to a few of you to bring Destiny back is better than that," she hisses. Back with Destiny, she continues to thrash in her bed. Her visions show the council arguing about Raven's lies. But Irene suddenly sits up, her sightless eyes staring at possible futures. Of a war with an eternal people, of the mutants overtaken by Sinister, of magic bringing the mutants to hell. She sees the cosmos, where Sinister is destroyed by an enormous exodus. In that moment, Essex merely gloats, promising Exodus that he has learned enough and will see him again. And then she sees darkness, as if Essex's death triggered the end of the timeline. But only Moira could do that. Irene sits up as her visions solidify in her mind. No, Moira's gift could do that. Nathaniel has cloned Moira, she suddenly realizes. The council continues to argue about Mystique's actions. But they are interrupted as Destiny walks into the room. War is coming in weeks. We must fight for our immortality. We must be ready, she warns. The council sat back down, discussing the issue. It is Exodus who believes that the mutant prophet is correct. Later, Destiny and Raven return to their home. Destiny sits at her desk, telling her wife that she must write. She writes into the night, her sightless eyes crying. She turns to where her wife lays in their bed. She cries because in all the possible futures that she saw, Raven wasn't in any of them. Emma awakens in her bed, her diamond form glistening in the soft light. She is taken to sleeping in her diamond form because it is when she is most protected. She gets up and walks through her home, looking at the dress that she plans to wear for the upcoming gala. Later, she walks into the gala, but now the world has become aware of the mutant's immortality. An ambassador asks her for a moment and discusses the mutants resurrecting, telling her that if they were to offer it to key members of world organizations, it would go a long way to governments helping their people come to terms with the fact that mutants can no longer die. Emma turns to him with anger. Over 16 million dead, she hisses, reminding him of all the mutants who died on Genosha while the world governments looked on. But the ambassador is unfazed. Krakoa has made deals to secure its future before. This is just another one, he tells her. Emma sighs for a moment. I'll talk to the council, she says. Later, Essex stands before the council after hearing Emma's words. Perhaps this is an opportunity. If the world leaders are interested in letting me clone them and giving me an opportunity to meddle with their genes, we should embrace it. Who wouldn't want a kill switch on all the world leaders? He asks. But Charles holds up his hand and asks Essex to stop. Charles leans forward as news arrives in his mind. A man just died. He tried to inject himself with mutant growth hormone and took his own life. Thought that if he died a mutant, he'd come back. Oh, the poor fools, Charles whispers. But the council seems unfazed. Can we be blamed for the stupidity of humanity? Exodus finally asks. But Emma stops the discussion, telling the group that they have more important issues to discuss. I have some memories from Scott, and I'd like to present them, she says, showing everyone the images of Scott when he confronted Dr. Stasis, who turned out to be Nathaniel Essex. Everyone is shocked by the image of Sinister's smiling face, but with a clover on his forehead instead of a diamond. He claims to be Nathaniel Essex, the real Nathaniel Essex, not the clone that we have here, she says. Sinister looks around in surprise. I don't understand. He begins to rabble. The council moved quickly, but Sinister is already out of his seat, using a gene bomb of Nightcrawler's powers to teleport. But Exodus is up quickly, spotting Sinister outside, where he is using Multiple Man's powers to try and disappear into a crowd. Sinister arrives at his secret gate, but finds Destiny waiting for him. Hello, Nathaniel. Don't you want to know what's going on? You can't run from this. Don't be a coward, she tells him. But Sinister fires at her before rushing into his portal. He arrives quickly, shocked by what he has learned. This is new. How could I have missed this? He wonders. But he picks up a pistol and prepares to execute Moira's clone, knowing that he can start over. But he pauses, thinking about Irene standing next to his portal. She knew I'd be there. She could have stopped me. She knows something. But what? Does she suspect it? If she does, she'd suspect my failsafes. So does she think that playing to my pride would stop me? He says, practically babbling to himself. He finally turns away from the clone in frustration. Infuriating woman! He shouts. He looks to his gene closet, knowing that he can destroy everything and start time over again if he fails. With this in mind, he steps back through the portal, his hands in the air. "Hello, darlings. I'm back and quite contrite. I'm very sorry. I panicked. I'm looking forward to helping you all get to the bottom of this," he says, kneeling before the members of the Quiet Council. "I will clear my name," he promises them. Exodus steps forward. "Kill him. We can always bring him back when we make up our minds," he says. Raven moves to shoot Sinister before Destiny suggests the pit. But a ray of light suddenly fills the air, and Sinister disappears in a puff of smoke. "Please say he's dead. We're overdue for a stroke of luck," Emma says with a sigh. But Destiny shakes her head. "I don't think so. He's been kidnapped," she says as she looks up into the sky. 1943. Raven slips from the shadows, taking on the form of a blonde bombshell. The two soldiers look up in surprise as she approaches. "Gentlemen, I appear to be a little lost," she says with a smile. They are too stunned to speak, so she moves in and knocks them out quickly with an uppercut and a kick. She smiles at them again as she shifts once more to take on their form. Moving through the army base, she finally finds what she is looking for. People building strange stasis pods. "Hello, Raven. Please tell me you didn't kill the poor soldier," Irene says as she comes up behind her lover. Raven returns to her normal form, shocked to see Irene there. But as Destiny leads her through the building, she explains that while Nathaniel Essex is an evil man, he is necessary to the future of mutant kind. Irene leads Raven topside, promising her that Nathaniel will eventually get what's coming to him. A powerful, annoying, bald psychic thrashes him while quoting German philosophy, Irene explains. Raven sighs and shakes her head. "That does sound annoying, but I'll bet it doesn't finish Sinister for good. He does like to cheat death," she says. Raven reaches out and hugs Irene before disappearing into the desert. How did he manage to come back after the first time, she wonders. London, 1895. At 221B Baker Street, Raven has taken on the identity of a brilliant private detective, with Irene acting as her assistant. The two of them are looking into the Saucy Jack murders, and their investigation has led them to the Milbury house, where they meet Nathaniel Essex, who is a supposed survivor of the latest attack. He greets them at the door and invites them inside, though he asks them to get to the point quickly. "I fear time is somewhat pressing," he explains. Irene nods and steps forward. "I'm aware of your work, Dr. Essex, and your Essex factors," she tells him. She informs him that his work will only end in madness and asks that he turn away from it. Nathaniel merely looks at her for a moment. "I'm not sure what intrigues me more, that a blind woman claims to read or a woman claims to have sufficient mind to read me," he says. But Raven, now in the form of Sherlock Holmes, steps around the subject and asks Essex about the attack. "I was walking. I was attacked from behind. The brute was disturbed. I survived. I can be of no further help to the great detective," he says simply. The two thank Essex for his time and step out into the night. "Do you want a clue?" Irene asks Raven as she changes back. "Absolutely not," Raven says sharply. That night, she walks through the city, having now taken on the disguise of a damsel in distress. But a scream pierces the night air. Raven transforms at once into an armed assassin and rushes forward, rounding the corner into an alleyway where she raises her weapon. But her eyes widen in shock as she sees a muscular Essex smashing a man's head against the wall. "Why, hello! You look interesting. I bet your blood would look super all smashed upon the wall, yes?" he says with an evil smile. Raven aims her rifle and fires, blowing off half of Essex's head. I still live, he says with a laugh as he leaps up and begins to scale the wall, his fingers digging into the stone. Raven follows him quickly and hunts the beast to the Milbury house, where Irene waits outside. I don't need you. I found him all by myself, Raven snaps. Irene smiles. I know. Well done. But I am curious, she says. Inside, the two women find Essex changing back. This is beyond your understanding, ladies, he tells them as he crawls away. But Raven reveals her shape-shifting to him. You're Essex men? He gasps in surprise. The trio retire to Essex's study, where he explains that an ancient Egyptian gave him great power. But he couldn't control the gift, and it turned him into the monster that they met. With what he did to me, I may not outlive this century, Nathaniel explains, but tells them that he must. For one day, man will fight against each other, and eventually the clockwork minds that man is creating. But it is only by science taming the supernatural can they hope to fight against their future clockwork beings. He steps forward and draws a diamond onto the chalkboard before them. I have to plan for the long game. Despite my current predicament, the monster in me will be tamed, and I will see the 20th century. And the next, and the next, and the next, he says. Raven is simply confused. Why are you telling us this? She asks him. Essex turns back to her, a crazed look in his eyes. One day, there will be a war between people like us and people who are not people. We must be on the same side, he says. But Irene steps forward and knocks him out. I will never be on the same side as men like you, she snaps. The pair deliver Essex to the authorities, who leave him in a mental institution. In the darkness of his cell, Nathaniel promises that he will live. He sees the future, sees black and red. But his eyes suddenly go wide. You're a ghost, he begins to whisper. The next day, Irene and Raven discover that Nathaniel died in the night. Irene goes to the Milbury house, where she begins to look through Essex's research. She searches the basement, where she discovers 4 tanks that have been broken open, and on the top of them are 4 symbols: a diamond, a clover, a heart, and a spade. Krakoa. The Quiet Council continues their meeting, discussing the news from Araco and the prospect of allowing human resurrection for the purpose of allies around the globe. But the meeting is interrupted as Sinister walks through the door. Glad you could join us, Sinister. You can read the minutes to catch up, Emma says as Sinister stalks past her. Destiny looks up from her chair at that moment. Exodus, she says. The Holy Mutant looks at her. Nathaniel is about to kill Hope, she says as she leans back. Sinister looks at her in anger, still trying to get his pistol out. You spoil sport! He shouts before Exodus uses his power to blow up Sinister's head. Everyone is shocked and Kitty looks up from the bloody mess. What's going on? She asks. It was earlier that Sinister decided that enough was enough. He had already reached the first stage of his plan, putting Hope on the council. But he didn't want to have to go through Judgment Day again, so he created 2 more Moira clones and tried to reach stage 2. With his save point reached, he picked up his pistol and prepared himself. But, okay, Destiny will interfere. Well, one way to sidestep that, he says to himself after he returns to the save point. He tried blowing up the council, but Destiny saw this and Kurt managed to teleport everyone away and Exodus blew up Sinister's head. He tries to kill Destiny before Hope, but she sees this and Raven attacks him. Hope takes Exodus's gift and blows up Sinister's head. He tries using a mech, but Hope and Storm blow him up. He tries using a sniper rifle, but Exodus finds him quickly. He tries using a psychic trap, which kills Xavier. But Emma becomes a diamond and punches through his skull. He tried transforming into a giant monster and managed to kill half the council, but both Destiny and Hope managed to survive. The last time, he enters the council chamber claiming to be ready to clear his name from the Clover Mr. Sinister. He offers them a psychic imprint that will clear his name. The psychics begin to look at it, but it is a batch of cloned Xavier brains turned into a psychic bomb and immediately shuts them all down. The pulse tears apart the psychics, except for Exodus and Hope. Sinister unleashes his next attack, cloned Scott Summers' eyes with wings. They fly around and blast everyone. With a laugh of glee, Sinister rushes forward and uses Gambit's genes to implode the inside of Exodus. Now, Exodus is dead, so you're not copying his gift anymore, Hope. So, are you still indestructible? Sinister asks as he turns to Hope. He raises a pistol and fires it at her, blowing her up. Sinister laughs at finally completing his task before teleporting away in the smoke and destruction. Afterwards, the rest of the council regrouped, shocked by the events. Bringing Hope back will be difficult, but they have contingencies in place to do it. What the damn hell was that man thinking? Shaw asks as he looks around. Kitty begins to gather everyone around her, promising to bring Sinister to justice. I can find him, Destiny tells her. And Kitty nods with determination. Good. Let's go dig this bastard out of whatever hole he's hiding in, and then throw him in ours, she says. In his secret lab, Sinister rushes to the computer and orders it to speed up the second clone of Moira's growth cycle. I need a save point, and I need to be out of here, he shouts. He turns away as the computer works, wishing he had done more, but knowing he can work with what he has. I can handle it. I have to. I am not going back to Bloody Judgment Day, he says. At the Quiet Council, other mutants have begun to gather the dead, with Cable picking up Hope and carrying her to the people of Krakoa. But the fail-safes work, and Hope is brought back from the dead. What happened? Hope asks as she stands, turning to see her dead body. Sinister, Sync informs her. The rest of the Quiet Council is resurrected. Question: does Sinister still breathe the same air as actual mutants? Exodus asks. For now, the Council is leading the X-Men to him, Charles explains. Emma stands. Oh good, if we hurry, we can get a little revenge. It has such an ugly reputation, but sometimes it just hits the spot, she says angrily. The X-Men arrive at Sinister's secret lab, but Sinister lets loose his chimeras on them. The first is an Eye-Boy Cyclops hybrid. The creature lashes out with numerous optic blasts. X-Men to Council. Things have escalated. Requesting support, Cyclops shouts. A portal opens and the remaining members of the Quiet Council appear. At last, Shaw says with a smile. The mutant launches into the battle but is met by hybrid clones of Wolverine. As the battle rages, Jean reaches out to find Sinister's mind. I have him, Kurt, she shouts, sharing the location with him. Kurt bamfs away, but is shocked to find a brain in a jar. Decoy brain, he shouts. The battle continues to rage onward, and Sinister's escape shuttle is finally powered. It rips through the ground, but the resurrected members of the Quiet Council have arrived. Hope and Exodus take each other's hands and reach out, using their combined powers to rip Sinister's ship in half. It plummets to the ground in a ball of fire. But Sinister survives and pulls himself clear of the rubble. Emma stalks forward and kicks Sinister in the face, knocking him to the ground. Well, Nathaniel, I don't think you need Irene's gifts to guess what happens next, Charles tells him. Sinister is returned to Krakoa, where he stands trial for his actions against the Council. Shockingly, he is found guilty and imprisoned beneath the soil of the living island. In the pit, Charles stares at the spot where Sinister stood moments ago. This is a wake-up call. We must be better in the future. We cannot act like we have. A useful monster is still a monster. Sinister is gone. Let us make a better, kinder Krakoa, he says. With nods, the council members turn and leave the chamber. Destiny pauses for a moment before reaching out for Raven's hand. My love, we must leave immediately, she warns. Later, in his chambers, Charles watches the sunset before turning back to his room. He looks at the mirror there and quietly reaches up to remove the Cerebro helmet. He smiles as he reveals the sinister diamond on his forehead. And that brings us to the conclusion of the Immortal X-Men that leads into the X-Men event, Sins of Sinister, which is currently going on right now. Don't worry, I will be reading that story for you when it does eventually conclude, but if you want to read it before then, go to your local comic shop or check out online to buy yourself the copies of Sins of Sinister. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to click that bell icon to get notifications when new videos go live. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching, and I will see you next time.